Former Saints player and convicted rapist Darren Sharper has been transferred from prison to a reentry program.
Meg Gatto joins us with those details. Meg.
Sharper was transferred May 27th from FCI Elkton, which is a prison in Ohio, to a community confinement environment. The Bureau of Prisons telling us community confinement could mean the person is either in home confinement or in a halfway house. Sharper was sentenced to 18 years in prison after he pleaded guilty or no contest to drug and rape charges. His criminal case stretched several states. He pleaded guilty or no contest in courts in Louisiana, California, Nevada, and Arizona to charges that he drugged and raped or attempted to rape multiple women. The allegations came to light after his 2014 arrest in Los Angeles, where investigators said he drugged and sexually assaulted women that he met at nightclubs. Sharper played 14 seasons in the NFL, including with the Saints Super Bowl team. He later worked as a television analyst before the allegations became public. Brandon Licciardi, a former St. Bernard Parish Sheriff's deputy who was arrested in this case, was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Licciardi admitted to helping Sharper drug women and attempted to raping a woman Sharper had drugged. He was released from federal prison supervision in April. Darren Sharper has a projected release date from the reentry program in December of 2028.